won't be able to talk about what those are, but these young men and women are breaking new ground. It's incredibly inspiring. I met with teams who launched our own one-way attack drones into Iran. These were originally Iranian-designed drones. We brought them back to America, took the guts out, put a Made American stamp on them, and fired them right back to Iran. Very effective. I met with teams who are employing AI every single day to help us sift through vast amounts of information to help us make decisions faster. And importantly, humans are always in the loop in this process. I met with our Space Force teams and our cyber specialists, whose work cannot be discussed, but who serve with indispensable impact. I met with our logisticians and sustainers all over the region. There is just no military that executes logistics like the U.S. military. This group is doing exceptional work, moving thousands of tons every single day. I met with our air defenders who shot down Iranian ballistic missiles. My message for this group in particular is that their actions most certainly saved thousands of lives across the Middle East during Epic Fury. And all told, my personal assessment is, after these couple of trips, is our troops are highly motivated, they're focused, they're vigilant, and they're ready. And they're using this time to do a couple of things. We're rearming, we're retooling, and we're adjusting our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There's no military in the world that adjusts like we do, and that's exactly what we're doing right now during the ceasefire. A little note about partners. My discussion with regional allies and partners, both at the senior civilian level and the senior military level, reinforced our shared commitment to regional security. But beyond that, having now fought together side by side, I assess that our military partnerships are stronger than ever as we continue to maintain a very active defense posture across the region during this ceasefire. And that posture stretches across the entire Arabian Peninsula, and it runs from northern Iraq all the way down into the northern Arabian Gulf. In creating the largest air defense umbrella in the world across the Middle East, we embedded specially trained U.S. military air defenders alongside our partner nation soldiers, side by side, literally side by side. And to give you a sense of their contribution and impact, the King and Crown Prince of Bahrain both personally knew our soldiers by name. These leaders expressed appreciation for our service member who continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with our partners in support of regional defense. And this is a sentiment that is widely shared across every Gulf ally. I heard this message over and over again, which is, we stand with you. As the Secretary and the Chairman have said, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan have been exceptional teammates. I had a chance to meet with both their senior leadership as well as their troops. Boy, equally inspiring and equally committed to mutual defense. They defended Americans and they defended their own country. It was inspiring. And there's been no better teammate than Israel. Together, the four best air forces in the world, the Israeli Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, and the air forces of the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps, together met and exceeded our own military objectives over and over again. Twice in the past 2 weeks, I've met with the Israeli Chief of Defense to ensure that we remain closely aligned, and we do. And then finally, let me just close by saluting the brave men and women who are in uniform and who continue to answer the call with unrivaled lethality, great teamwork, and resolve. We've asked them to stay ready during this period, and that's exactly what they're doing. I couldn't be prouder, and I know that you and the American people share in that same pride. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll take a few questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. Alexandra Ingersoll, One American News. How is the Iranians' decimated command and control affecting the ceasefire at this juncture? Ergo, how are we enforcing a ceasefire with an enemy who has virtually no command and control? And then one other question about the Houthis being, have the Houthis been an issue in the Straits of Hormuz and the Bab al-Mandab Strait at the Red Sea?
Now we welcome Yossi Cooper-Wasser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert. Joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Yossi, for joining us again. Good to see you. As we just heard, U.S. Defense Pete Hegseth give a speech. To me, it seemed like it was a motivation and it was like a prep talk for an upcoming military exercise that might be heading towards escalation. What's your take?
Well, I think all options are on the table. It depends on what the Iranians are going to decide. if they're going to keep refusing to make any concessions on the major issues of opening the Hormuz Straits and putting an end to their nuclear military program, then the military option is on the table, and the ceasefire is being used by the Americans, as he mentioned, to get better prepared and learn the lessons and do necessary steps to be fit for the continuation of the hostilities. There's no other option.
And why do you think, we are hearing these firm stance and firm warnings to Iran from U.S. side, even though if things are de-escalating or there could be another round of peace talks, why this kind of rhetoric is being used?
I think it's very important to remind the Iranians that if they refuse to show this flexibility that I was talking about, then it's going to be consequences to that. And that's exactly the message of the Secretary of War and the American administration in general. And I think you hear it also from the Israelis. It's the price for not showing flexibility is going to be very high. They're already paying a price right now with the blockade, but the price can be higher if necessary. And they have to know and realize that even though we much prefer an agreed upon end to this war, but this is not going to be accepted in any conditions. But there are two major conditions that Israel and the United States put forward, and they have to be met.
So, do you think that this they haven't touched upon other countries? Like, Trump always talks about other countries, especially the countries in Europe, as the traditional allies like UK and NATO did not join or support them. We didn't hear this kind of comments from Pete Hegseth. What's your take? Why do you think he didn't?
Hegseth, first of all, referred to those who do take part in the war, the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia and so on and so forth, and Jordan. He didn't refer to those who do not take part in the war. But definitely what we see is a rupture between the Americans and the Europeans and the other members of NATO. And it is a reflection of the decay of Europe, the decay of many of the Western countries who were left without the will and without the capability, the power to wage a military operation. It's really painful to see that, but this is what we are up to. And the major use of force is being done by the United States and Israel, who are very friendly and see the situation very similarly, and by the Gulf states. That's where we stand today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper-Wasser, for sharing that insight. Please do stay with us as we come back to you. Now, moving on, Pope Leo is taking a hard line against global leaders during a high-stakes visit to Cameroon. Speaking from the nation's conflict-torn Anglophone region, the American pontiff has condemned the billions spent on modern warfare while humanitarian needs go unmet. He characterized the current state of the world as being ravaged by a small group of tyrants and called for an immediate change in direction. The Pope's forceful words follow a series of social media attacks from U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently labeled the religious leader weak on crime and foreign policy. Without taking names, the Pope targeted officials who use religious rhetoric to justify military action. Specifically, the ongoing conflict involving Iran, he described the manipulation of faith for political gain as a defilation of the sacred. The Pope ended his address by urging a rejection of what he called an upside-down world driven by devastation. Now let's hear it more from Thomas Porteous. He's a correspondent and my colleague from Newsx World. Thank you very much, Thomas, for joining us. Thomas, what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation between Pope and U.S. President?
Well, this certainly is an interesting saga, Asuma. As the American pontiff continues his ambitious four-nation, 11-day tour of Africa, things are heating up between Donald Trump, and Pope Leo XIV. Now, the pontiff is on his second stop of his four-stop trip. He first stopped in Algeria. He's now in Cameroon. He will next stop in Angola and Equatorial Guinea to finish off his trip. However, there has been more direct targeting by the US president. The pontiff has been much more subtle in his messaging. Today, in Cameroon, in Bamenda, the English-speaking region of the country, Pope Leo blasted the quote-unquote handful of tyrants, not mentioning the president directly, but has long been an advocate for peace and has been a vocal critic of the Iran war, the war in Gaza, the war in Ukraine. All of these conflicts, Pope Leo has not been shy about speaking against them. Now, Donald Trump's relationship with the Christian community as of late has been particularly interesting. After all, Donald Trump largely has a Christian base. 20% of America identifies as Catholic, as opposed to the majority of Americans which identify as evangelical Christian. But of course, 20%, a huge segment of his supporters, known to be mainly Christian, are indeed Catholic. So this spat with the 79-year-old pontiff is not going to put him too well in the running for those elections coming up in November. And who can forget the most recent controversy of Donald Trump posting that image of himself, which many critics say resembled Jesus. Donald Trump, of course, then followed up with saying that he thought that it was him as a doctor, then posting the image. So we'll continue to be covering this story, as of course the Pope will continue on his tour around Africa. We still have 2 more stops to go, where it is unclear whether Donald Trump will make further comments towards the Pope, further criticizing him. As Asuma, you mentioned earlier, Donald Trump directly called on Pope Leo for being quote unquote weak on crime. This, of course, a controversial issue. So yes, Donald Trump may follow through with more direct messaging, but of course Pope Leo subtly addressing Donald Trump and the issues that Donald Trump puts forward, like the Iran war, but Pope Leo will continue, of course, to speak out against war, how he has done previously, much to Donald Trump's dismay. We'll continue to bring you more on this as soon as we get further information on Pope Leo's tour.
Yes, thank you very much for that deep insight, Thomas. Now we also welcome Mr. Yossi Cooper-Wasser. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you, Mr. Cooper-Wasser, for staying with us. Mr. Cooper-Wasser, is this a new thing that we are seeing a political interference or comments from U.S. president towards a pontiff or a religious head like this?
Well, I think that it's a reflection of the tensions between the leaders of the West. It's I wouldn't look at it as necessarily only from a religious point of view, but it's beyond that. And the many Western leaders, especially those from Europe, still are under the belief that everything can be handled through diplomatic means and there's no need for war. In most cases, if there is a possibility to reach a diplomatic solution to a problem, of course it is recommended. But here we are facing a regime, and not only the regime itself, but also the axis that he has built throughout the years, that are determined to use the calm in order to build capabilities that are going to threaten the existence and security of the entire West, and especially here in the state of Israel. So there's no logic in enabling them to use the time as they want. And this idea that we try diplomacy, we all tried diplomacy for ages. It didn't help. These Iranians were already in the possession of 450 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%,
Yes,
which is very
Yossi,
close to
Mr.
having
Cooper-Wasser,
nuclear
I would
weapons.
like to remind you to stay on this topic, but thank you for sharing that, and please do stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion. Now, moving on to Lebanon, after decades of on and off conflict with Lebanon's Hezbollah residents of northern Israel, voice has mixed feelings regarding the possibility of another ceasefire agreement. U.S. President Donald Trump has said Lebanese and Israeli leaders will speak for the first time in decades, while Pakistan said peace in Lebanon was essential for talks it is mediating between Washington and Tehran on ending the war with Iran. Rocket fire from Lebanon has been sending residents of northern Israel into shelters since the Iran-backed Hezbollah opened fire in support of Tehran on March 2nd, prompting an Israeli offensive in Lebanon just 15 months after the last major conflict. Some Israeli residents of the area think Israel should finish the conflict with victory that they say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised, while others hope for a real peace agreement that will benefit both the people of Israel and of Lebanon. Let's listen in.
I'm against the ceasefire because if we do the ceasefire right now, it's going to be a problem because we have to get into the war again in about a month, maybe 2 months. It never ends. We have to finish it.
I think that if this is a real ceasefire, then it's long overdue. There is no territorial dispute here. It's just an Iranian proxy called Hezbollah, drowning the whole region down. I think it would be best for the people of Lebanon and the people of Israel to end this war. Not just a ceasefire, but a peace agreement, a real peace agreement. No one will lose anything. There's only something to gain here for everyone. Hezbollah needs to go back to Iran.
Ceasefire, there's no ceasefire now. I hope there'll be a ceasefire, which means we're going to live in a much better way of life. We wait for it. But since now, who knows?
אני מאוכזבת. עברנו משנת, מאז שאני מכירה את עצמי, סובלים, ועד היום אנחנו סובלים, ואמרו וביבי אמר, אנחנו ננצח. אבל אני מחכה לניצחון. שהוא לא רואה אור הוא לא רואה, הוא לא יוצא מהמקלט. מה? לאן הגענו? אני מאוכזבת ואני לא בעד הפסקת אש. אתם נכנסתם, כואב לי על החיילים, מאוד כואב לי וצר לי, באמת. אני כל לילה מברכת אותם. אבל תשמע, הגיעו מים עד נפש.
Now we welcome Mr. Cooper-Wasser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper-Wasser, for staying with us. So looking at Lebanon ceasefire talks once again, what does ceasefire or the win mean? As we were listening to a lady speak in Hebrew, she mentioned that, the win means victory. But what are people of Israel suggesting when they say win? Is it a ceasefire, or is it a win towards ending ending the power of Hezbollah entirely?
Well, the point of view of Israel, as far as I understand it, and I'm listening to what the people of the North are saying and what the Prime Minister is saying, a ceasefire means that we expect the Lebanese government to do what it is expected to do and disarm Hezbollah. That's the way to have a ceasefire, because otherwise any ceasefire is going to be used by Hezbollah to arm themselves again and to cause more damage in the next eruption of hostilities. So what's the point in that? We need to make sure that this war ends with the disarmament of Hezbollah and with the Lebanese government, Lebanese state, recapturing regaining the monopoly of the use of force from its territory. That's sovereignty. They don't have sovereignty at this point, and we need them to be a sovereign power in their own territory and to make sure that there is no other army in Lebanon besides the Lebanese army. Then we should be able to have a ceasefire with the Lebanese government, which will really represent Lebanon. This is not the situation right now, unfortunately.
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Cooper-Wasser for joining us and sharing that insight from Tel Aviv. Now we move on to Russia. The Kremlin has said that Russia's top economic officials have made proposal to President Vladimir Putin about how to kickstart the economy after he scolded them for a contraction in the first 2 months of this year. Russia's war economy, which contracted in 2022 but grew in 2023, 2024, and then 2025, has outperformed the G7 average since 2023, though it slowed down last year, and Putin said on Wednesday that the economy had contracted in January and February. At the start of a Kremlin meeting with Russia's most powerful economic officials, President Putin said the trajectory of the economy was below expectations and asked officials to give him detailed options on what could be done to remedy the situation. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said the closed part of the meeting went on for several hours behind closed doors and that there had been a free exchange of opinions. He declined to outline any details of the proposals for the economy, which has likely benefited from soaring prices for oil and gas, triggered by the U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran. Let's listen in.
У членов экономического блока правительства есть много предложений с тем, чтобы активировать экономику и придать ей большую динамику развития экономики. Вот поэтому все эти предложения озвучивались, зачастую бывают и споры, это абсолютно нормальный рабочий процесс. Вы знаете, что это не единственное совещание, они проходят у президента регулярно.
Now we welcome Professor Vasilin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School. Joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor Popovsky, for joining us. Good to see you. Now that we know that President Putin has been once again increasing pressure on his economic officials to foresee or make better of the situation that's in Russia now. What are they to do, and from your analysis, how's the situation like in Russia today?
Well, it's not good, to say the least. It's actually collapsing economy. Even if they can report some GDP, bear in mind that this is mostly military production, weapons, and those weapons effectively burn in Ukraine. So Russia might have a good GDP number, but this is not taking into consideration how much, first of all, human lives they lose. They lose 8,000 a week. And they are short of recruiting new soldiers because they have to pay huge compensation for those who perished in Ukraine. So let's start with that. If I'm an economic advisor, the first thing to tell Putin is to stop the war. There is no other way this economy will get any better by killing so many soldiers, Russian soldiers. By the way, Ukrainians don't die in those numbers. They are civilian Ukrainians, unfortunately. But in terms of Russian military losses, and these are human rights, and this is money to pay compensation to their families. So that's where they should start first and foremost. Everything else is useless, They may have some oil price increase, but that's temporary for a few weeks. And see, even with the oil price increases, they report losses in the first 3 months of the economy, which already suggests that the Russian economy is under severe pressure. And I'm curious to know what other advice can be given here, apart from just taking more taxes from the population, which is already, Russian population live already miserably in those 4 years. The prices are twice, and people cannot get to their pensions and to their bank accounts even. So yeah, it shows again the desperation in Kremlin. And if Putin is scolding his economic advisors, it's a very much signal that this regime goes nowhere. So I'm not surprised in a few weeks or few months if there will be a total economic collapse, which will basically lead to a regime change in Moscow. There is no way out of this. The war is lost by any analysis. Russians are losing lives every day in Ukraine. They lose millions of money with every missile that doesn't reach the target. And effectively, there is one direction here: total collapse of the economy and change of regime in Kremlin. I think sooner that happens better. And see, there is no diplomatic.
So, Professor, how come the Russian economy grew in 2023, 2024, and 2025, regardless of the ongoing war?
Well, as I said, they produce weapons, and those weapons are burned in Ukraine. You know, if I smash my window and replace it tomorrow with another window, and a week later I smash the new window and replace it with another window, I can report 200% increase in window production. But see, the problem with GDP is that it doesn't take into account the losses. You can replace your window every week and report growth of windows, but you still don't have windows if those windows are broken. So exactly the same happened with the Russian economy. They produce weapons, and those weapons die in Ukraine every day. So they may report a lot of GDP increase, but that is not to produce anything meaningful for the Russian people, food and furniture and building and health and all that. The Russian economy, 40% of it goes into expenditure to cover the war effort. So even if there is a GDP growth in 23-24, I'm not surprised. During the Second World War, the German economy, in numbers, was making big progress, but effectively Germany lost all of those because they produced primarily weapons, and tanks and munitions and all of these were dead in the end of the Second World War. So that's why the numbers might look good on paper, but in real life, it's absolutely miserable state of the Russian economy.
Great example as always. Thank you very much, Professor Popovsky, for sharing that insight with us. Now moving on to Turkey. The attack in the southern province of Kahramanmaraş was Turkey's second such incident this week in a country where such shootings have been rare. The funerals will be for 8 children, aged 10 and 11, and a 50-year-old teacher, as family members and mourners flocked around coffins draped in the Turkish flag in the southern province of Kahramanmaraş. People also placed roses on the steps of the school that was attacked. Many locals are in shock at what had unfolded a day earlier when a 14-year-old arrived at the building with 5 guns and opened fire. Police said the 14-year-old attacker had referenced a mass shooter in the United States in a photo on his WhatsApp profile. According to initial findings, no link to terrorism has been established in Wednesday's shooting. Schools will remain closed in Kahramanmaraş on Thursday and Friday. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has expressed sadness over this tragic attack. Now we move on to Africa. There exists an increased danger of floods in Nigeria this year, with over 14,000 villages in the nation under threat. The Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency predicts that flooding will peak from July to September when the rains are at their height. Among the affected areas are major urban centers such as Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt, besides coastal regions at risk of river and tidal flooding. However, according to government officials, the risks are comparable to previous years, although the effects might be more severe. Nigeria had experienced devastating floods before as well. For instance, in 2022, floods left over 600 people dead and over 1 million displaced. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
आज का भारत सिर्फ आगे नहीं बढ़ रहा, भारत खुद को नेक्स्ट लेवल पर ले जा रहा है.
Together with my friend Prime Minister Modi, who I was pleased to see again last night, we took on our bilateral relationship and raised it to its highest level ever.
We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India.
And as a citizen of Nepal, India's closest neighbor, I feel a deep sense of pride and optimism swing stride.
आज का भारत सिर्फ आगे नहीं बढ़ रहा, भारत खुद को नेक्स्ट लेवल पर ले जा रहा है.
Together with my friend Prime Minister Modi, who I was pleased to see again last night, we took on our bilateral relationship and raised it to its highest level ever.
We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India.
And as a citizen of Nepal, India's closest neighbor, I feel a deep sense of pride and optimism swing stride.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
I'm Rashan Gidwani reporting for NewsX and NewsX World, and I'm currently here at the 152nd IPU Assembly in Istanbul, Turkey. And seated across from me right now is Mr. Jan Bartosek, member of the parliament from the Czech Republic and member of the Committee of Security and Subcommittee of Defense from the Czech Republic. Sir, thank you so much for joining me. Let's dive right in with the sun shining on me right now. The theme of this year's IPU Assembly is nurturing hope, securing peace, and ensuring justice for future generations. Speak to me about how that resonates with you and, of course, all the other delegations that are here at the IPU Assembly.
Well, a member of parliament from the whole world is here, so I think we are in this special situation. We can see that the security across the world is not so safety like a few years ago, and so we have to reflect it in our resolution, and it means we have support to rule of law, we have support international law and a respect to the international law, and we have speak about situation, for example, in Ukraine, in Iran, and other parts of our world. And the resolution has to reflect the situation. It means I hope we will be successful during this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as resolutions are concerned, it really comes down to post-conflict resolutions, right? And essentially staying steadfast on what was discussed and sticking to it. And right now, it seems like the world we're living in is facing humanitarian challenges solely because some international laws are not being considered. How do you believe that parliamentarians and nations can come together after the IPU Assembly to stay steadfast and stick to the policies or the discussions that happened here?
Well, we can discuss about everything, but the responsibility of the conflicts are on the local governments. And if you are active in politics, your first responsibility is about the people, about their real life, about their peaceful life, about food, about water, and about their family life. So this is a responsibility of all of us. We can discuss how we can help it, but this has to be the first of all of the topic. If you are in a government, that your first interest is to make a peace inside your country and with your neighbors. And if you don't do it, it's very bad for all the people, because if you are in a government, you usually have everything: water, food, safety place.
Yes.
But if you are in a government, you have a lot of troubles because of the war. And this is my view of the politics. We are responsible to make useful peace and useful relationship with your neighbors for long term. And the basic of all is respect to the international law, I'm sure.
You mentioned the word neighbors there, which I think Turkey is a great metaphor for as far as a Western or European side and an Asian side. Speak to me, and as I can see the smile on your face, speak to me about how these two neighboring, entirely different maybe cultures have managed to bridge their differences, literally with a bridge. Tell me more.
Well, a lot of members of parliament met here. Different cultures, different historical experiences, different relationships with the neighbors. It's so difficult to to give some help or to advices to guide some foreign countries to find some solutions. But I have full respect to other countries with their religions, with their historical experiences. But I think the first of all is respect to human life, to respect to religions, to respect to women, to children, to respect to life as essential of everything. Yeah? And if you respect this basic value, then you can find solution for a lot of problems. But if you don't respect human being, if you are looking just for money or for oil, and to take a land from other country, it's a very bad scenario for everyone. Right. And especially smaller countries they have to be much more careful than a few years ago. We can see it on Russia. They took decision they will take a part of Ukraine, or maybe they will destroy Ukraine as a state. Well, it's very difficult for me as a member of the Czech parliament that some bigger state take decision. I will take you because you are smaller, or I hate you, or I don't like you, or I need your gold, or I need your
I'm Rashan Gidwani for NewsX and NewsX World, and I'm here in Istanbul, Turkey for the 152nd IPU Assembly. And across from me right now is Ms. Faria dos Santos, Member of Parliament from Timor-Leste, Chair of the Public Finance Commission of Timor-Leste, and also the Chair of the IPU delegation from Timor-Leste. Ma'am, it's wonderful to be with you. Of course, it's very chilly right now. I'm so appreciative that you decided to sit with me. Let's dive right in. Let's discuss gender equality. At the end of this IPU, the very first female Secretary General could be chosen. Tell me more about what this represents for gender equality worldwide, and of course, for Timor-Leste.
Okay, as a woman, as representative of our people from Timor-Leste, I'm very happy if during this 152 conference, one lady can be elected for the Secretary General. You know that the IPU is, we have more than 100 countries that represent each country. And then if one woman will be elected, it will represent all of us, even that we are not from Turkey, we are in Timor-Leste. Our voice can be heard. You know, she can talk on all of the member of parliament, especially the women. So I'm very support this because in Timor-Leste, right now, we can be as an example because our speakers, our president of our national parliament is a woman. And then most of, in the table, we have around five member of parliament who lead the parliament, but it's only majority is a woman. So only we have two vice presidents. One is also woman, and the three secretaries is all women. So in between five is only two men. So we can be our experience can be based of our country, and then other. I hope IPU will elected one Secretary General for the first time. I'm also, this is the first time I come to, I become a chair, and this is the first time I join IPU. Last time we have other delegation, and we changed it in the middle of our period of parliament. So I'm very happy if the Secretary General will be elected.
Well, congratulations on essentially attending and coming down for your first IPU assembly. What do you wish to take back with you when the 5 days are over after the 19th of April? Are there some policies that you'd like to see implemented? Tell me more.
Yeah, because here we have like 4 or 5 commission, I think, for human rights, for human, for youth, and then the other thing, we have split our team to different commission here. So I hope based of the experience, based of the regulation that they are going to share, maybe because Timor-Leste is a new country, we just get our independence in fully independence in 2022. In most of our law, our resolution is not in place yet. So I think based of this international standard, we can bring it to our parliament in order for us to produce our new law or new regulation or to be taken to my country. And also based of the experience that's shared by other country, I think the discussion here is very active. I'm really enjoying, even though this is my first time, because most of the time we just stay in our country, and then by hearing other experience from other country, I think this will help us, especially as a new country. We just joined the ASEAN, just for your information, if you know. We just became a member of WTC right now, suddenly. And then ASEAN, I think, against with the IPU, we can gain more experience to be shared with our people, especially in our national parliament.
Amazing. I know you have a meeting to get to, so I'll ask you one last question. Of course, right now there's troubling times happening in the Middle East, and these are issues that have persisted for a long time, especially in that area. So the theme of this IPU assembly is nurturing hope, securing peace, and ensuring justice for future generations. If you can speak to me just shortly on essentially what you could say to our viewers to hold strong and steady in times like this when there are global oil supplies and of course the world is seeing a crunch. Please tell me more.
Yeah, even though we live far from Middle East, but we accompany the situation through the news, through the media, and we are also very sad, seeing this situation. Timor-Leste, we just want to share. We offer our solidarity for the people who face the war. But I think we are in the 20th century. We have more chance to do to stop the war. We can do negotiation. We can bring to the table to negotiate. And I hope the war will end soon. We have always pray as a people who trust God. We pray for that, so the war will end soon, and then the justice can be in the place, and then hope the people who suffer for this war will be recover soon. And everything we should bring it to the table to talk, to do the diplomacy. If other country can help these two the state that have a problem, I think that will be very helpful, especially IPU, because we are representing even more than 100 countries. If you can make just something resolution or something that we can contribute to end the war, I think it will be very helpful. So IPU has a big opportunity, or they have a chance to do something. Since we are here, we are sitting together, it's better to discuss, to get more better idea to end up the war.
Very nice. Madam Santos, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. I'm Rashan Gidwani for NewsX and NewsX World.
आज का भारत सिर्फ आगे नहीं बढ़ रहा, भारत खुद को नेक्स्ट लेवल पर ले जा रहा है.
Together with my friend Prime Minister Modi, who I was pleased to see again last night, we took on our bilateral relationship and raised it to its highest level ever.
We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India.
And as a citizen of Nepal, India's closest neighbor, I feel a deep sense of pride and optimism seeing this stride.
I'm Rashan Gidwani for NewsX and NewsX World, and I'm here in Istanbul, Turkey for the 152nd IPU Assembly. And seated across from me right now is Mr. Alexander Merezhko, member of the Ukrainian Parliament delegation to the IPU and chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee from Ukraine. Sir, let's dive right in. Of course, this year's IPU Assembly theme is nurturing hope, securing peace, and ensuring justice for future generations. As far as Ukraine is concerned, this conflict has extended over 3 years to the point where it's tough for parliamentarians who I've interviewed and experts to kind of pinpoint where the conflict is in the world. And of course, there's lots to take in, of course, with the Middle East conflict. Do you believe that even after the Easter truce that Ukraine and Russia will be able to find a diplomatic resolution to essentially put aside their differences and move forward diplomatically?
The truth is that there is no difference. No differences between Russia and Ukraine. There is a crime of aggression committed by Russia against Ukraine, and Ukraine is a victim. It can be solved very easily. Russia should just stop its aggression and withdraw its troops and to respect our rights under international law. Russia's aggression against Ukraine has been continuing for 12 years. We're talking about full-scale invasion starting in 2022, so it's been for more than 4 years, but the war itself has continued for 12 years, and of course it's very difficult for us. But we're doing fine. We managed to resist Russian aggression. We're not losing the war. Russia's not winning the war, but we need more support, including, of course, such countries as India, which claims to be the biggest democracy in the world. I would also proudly add that I'm very proud of, I used to be a professor at Indian University, at Jindal Global University, and I'm very proud of that. And India is very close to my heart, and I would like to see India, I'm not even saying on the side of Ukraine, I'm saying on the side of international law.
Right. India, like you just mentioned, that you were a professor at the Jindal Global Law School, and of course you've spent some time in India. India has managed to maintain its position as the heart of the world in the sense that diplomatically and as far as economically, with absorbing the oil shock that Indians are facing, they've managed to allow their citizens to move forward in a way that lets them know that the government will absorb till the end of the year almost $10 billion in oil prices being risen due to this Middle East conflict. Tell me more about your experience in India and how you believe that India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, sir, has been able to take it to a place where, economically speaking, they can absorb these oil prices, and tell me more about Ukraine's position as well with the Middle East conflict, please.
Yeah, first of all, we're grateful to Prime Minister Modi when he, for example, I remember vividly his last visit to Ukraine. It was truly important for both Ukraine and India. It was a gesture of solidarity with us. It's important. It was an indication that, after all, India is not neutral when it comes to struggle against evil and goodness. So that's why it was so important. The truth is, when it comes to oil, that Russian war machine runs on oil, on selling Russian oil and gas. And Putin will stop the war only if his war machine runs out of these profits provided by selling oil and gas to other countries, including, unfortunately, India. Right. That's why, if we're talking about possible contribution to peace in Ukraine, in the world, which India can do, is just cut down on buying Russian oil and gas. And from what I see, and thanks to President Trump also, to his position, and thanks to position of Prime Minister Modi, this issue, I would say, is in the process of being solved. But of course, we need more actions on the part of India, and we hope that your government will be more involved in this process, bringing peace to Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. I was speaking with another expert and guest about post-conflict resolution as far as the IPU is concerned, to essentially move nations forward in a way that doesn't inhibit them from making moves and actions that threaten the long-standing stability and consistency that many nations have worked tirelessly to enjoy. Speak to me about the IPU's involvement in post-conflict resolution and what you would like to take home to tell your other parliamentarians about the IPU Assembly and as far as post-conflict resolution is concerned.
Objectively speaking, IPU cannot do much because it doesn't have enforcement instruments in terms of international law. It adopts resolutions. But despite this, the voice of IPU is important because it's a voice of parliaments across the world. That's why it's important. It's a voice of mankind. That's why each time when the IPU in its resolutions, so to speak, calls a spade, and calls out Russia and is against Russian aggression, it's also important. It's a kind of moral pressure put on the aggressor. In this respect, it's also important. That's why IPU can also make an important contribution to bringing peace to Ukraine.
Yeah, sir, you mentioned moral pressure, and I wanted to touch on this just now as I heard you talking and I was listening. We've seen Zelensky travel the globe, essentially also sit down with President Trump, and you mentioned that this aggression towards Ukraine has lasted 12 years. On a day-to-day basis, how can parliamentarians also kind of navigate this mental pressure of trying to find diplomatic resolutions in these trying times?
Well, of course, it's difficult because this winter, which is luckily over, it was really harsh for our people, not only for all people, including members of parliament, because we're just regular people. For example, I didn't have heating in my apartment. I had to send my 2 small children to village otherwise they started to get ill because of the cold. We didn't have power, electricity. It was tough. It was really tough, but luckily we have survived because Russia is deliberately targeting our critical infrastructure. Russia has weaponized even temperature. Even they're weaponizing everything against Ukraine. And being a member of parliament is quite a challenge because often we have to take unpopular decisions due to the realities of war. And it might be difficult, but all our thoughts, all our actions are aimed at only one goal: to support our military, our army, because we understand that our lives depend on our army, which is defender of the whole country, of the whole civil population in Ukraine. And we are trying to do our best to support our military, our government, and of course, our people.
Sir, one last question. How do you believe that Istanbul essentially stands as kind of the perfect backdrop to discuss everything that we've just spoken about, and how will this essentially move parliamentarians forward to find more diplomatic resolutions and essentially, like you just mentioned, find that action that's required to instill situations and policies so that you don't have to experience what you experience, or even future generations do not have to, please?
I would like to say that we can use diplomatic means, but we have exhausted diplomatic means. I was involved in negotiations with Russia. I was a deputy head of our Ukrainian delegation to the Trilateral Contact Group. It was a so-called Minsk process. And we've been trying our best to use diplomatic mechanisms to prevent the full-scale invasion and to stop the ongoing war and Russian war crimes against Ukraine. And the only obstacle remains the same. Putin, unfortunately, he's not a kind of person who believes himself in international law, international treaties. It makes no sense to negotiate with someone who will never comply with the reached agreements. This is the problem. That's why the only realistic approach to bringing peace to Ukraine is to put maximum pressure on Russia. Actually, there are 2 ways. First of all, to implement serious sanctions which deprive Russian war machine of its fuel. And second, by providing necessary aid, military assistance to Ukraine to enhance our defense capabilities, because we're talking about lives of civilian population. So it can be done, and it's the only road to peace. And after that, who knows, maybe there will be room for diplomacy. I don't know about that. But at the present time, the road to peace lies through the position of strength.
Sir, thank you so much for tracking these developments with me. I hope our paths cross again soon, and Potentially we meet in Tanzania as well for the next IPU assembly. Much appreciated, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor, pleasure, and I hope to see you in Tanzania.
Yeah, sir. Namaste.
Namaste.
I'm Rashan Gidwani for NewsX and NewsX World.
आज का भारत सिर्फ आगे नहीं बढ़ रहा, भारत खुद को नेक्स्ट लेवल पर ले जा रहा है.
Together with my friend Prime Minister Modi, who I was pleased to see again last night, we took on our bilateral relationship and raised it to its highest level ever.
We need new answers. That's why we are coming to India.
And as a citizen of Nepal, India's closest neighbor, I feel a deep sense of pride and optimism seeing this stride.
Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report here on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines leading this hour. Optimism is growing that the Iran war may be near an end, with a key Pakistani mediator reporting a breakthrough on difficult issues, though Iran warns its nuclear program remains unresolved. The US says its forces stand ready to restart combat if a deal is not reached. Iran is proposing to allow ships to sail freely the Omani side of the Strait of Hormuz without risk of attack, provided a deal is clinched to prevent renewed conflict. The proposal marks a significant diplomatic signal as talks with the US continue. President Trump says Israeli and Lebanese leaders will speak for the first time in decades on Thursday, as Pakistan insists peace in Lebanon is essential to ongoing Iran-US negotiations. The development marks a rare diplomatic opening on two parallel fronts. In Europe, Russian strikes have killed 17 people across Ukraine in the deadliest attack of the year so far, officials say. The assault comes as Europe faces growing pressure to bolster its defences amid concerns over the weakened state of several NATO allies' armed forces. In Africa, Pope Leo XIV has denounced leaders who spend billions on wars, declaring the world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants in unusually forceful remarks delivered in Cameroon. The comments come after US President Donald Trump attacked the pontiff again on social media. Back to West Asia, dozens of Palestinian children have been blocked from reaching their school in the occupied West Bank after Israeli settlers erected barbed wire across their usual path. The incident adds to growing international concern over conditions facing Palestinians under occupation. A report reveals a Starlink outage last August disabled 24 US Navy unmanned vessels off the coast of California for nearly an hour, exposing the Pentagon's dangerous reliance on Elon Musk's satellite network. The incident has prompted urgent questions about single points of failure in US military operations. In East Asia, China's economy grows 5% in the first quarter, beating forecasts despite global disruption from the Iran war. The data marks the first release since Beijing lowered its annual target, with growth driven by manufacturing and exports even as prosperity weakness persists. Those are your top headlines for the hour. We start with some updates coming out of the Iran war. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Caine have announced a total naval blockade on all Iranian ports today. Every vessel entering or leaving Iran faces immediate interdiction, boarding and seizure by US forces. Officials state the Iranian Navy lacks the capability to challenge these operations in either territorial or international waters. The Pentagon is prepared to resume active combat immediately if the blockade is defied or diplomatic efforts collapse. Hegseth confirmed China has formally assured the United States it will not provide weapons to Iran during the ceasefire. He stated Iran's supreme leader is currently wounded but alive. Officials believe Iran has a high motivation to maintain the current truce due to these leadership injuries and the scale of the maritime pressure. The US military remains deployed and ready to strike at a moment's notice, according to the US Secretary of War. Joining us now is Andrew K.P. Leung, an independent China strategist. He joins us live from Hong Kong. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast. These assurances from China, let's start off with them. Amidst speculation that Beijing might be supplying weapons to Iran, does these assurances from China hold weight? Will China not provide Iran any weapons during this conflict? And is it in their interest not to do so?
Well, first of all, this assurance is contained in a recent letter, a written letter, formal letter from President Xi. So it carries a lot of weight. But then, of course, it's talking about during this conflict. Don't forget that Iran and China have been in very close relationship, diplomatic, military, various other relationships for a long, long time before the war. And of course that the Iran was being bombed about so more than 6 months ago during last year. A complete sort of a historic bombing without being able to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities, and hence the current war is a restart of the former the last year's bombing. So there's a lot of history behind the current conflict. And what President Xi was saying, well, during this ceasefire, obviously China's not going to supply arms to Iran because it's in China's interest. This current war should end because China doesn't want a war. China wants to have a peaceful environment because it depends a great deal on international trade. And now the international trade across the world, across the group, has been totally devastated and disrupted by this war. So it's obviously it's in China's interest